I'm really glad I backed up last time because we needed the backup. Like my software program or it just crapped out on me. So here we are, backed up.
It's
Boom.
fine. I don't think you want to start the episode with here we are backed up.
Now I kind of do. um,
It's your prerogative. It's all good.
it's true. Um,
I can't not point something out to you and then make you like not do it. So there was no winning for me.
that's true. It would have been awkward if we'd started and the audience was like, "What are they doing? What is happening?" It's
Can
fair.
they not hear themselves?
Do they know this is going out to other people? Um, yeah,
Sometimes I wonder.
that's very fair. Um, so we're gonna
Are you?
have a guest speaker or a guest with us next time. We just
Oh,
have to
hooray.
schedule it. Yes, I got the confirmation email today. We'll just leave our listeners there. Coming back for more next episode.
Yeah. Are you ready for the semester? Because for us, like classes start next week.
So no.
Oh,
I logged into my grad class today and was able to get done with that stuff. What I don't have, so I only have an in person thing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this semester. I also have a small, in the class I teach in person is a lecture lab. It's my geology of the national parks class, which is super fun, but I have a small number of students. So worst case scenario, I can hand copy things, but best case scenario, I get my syllabus at least sent in today. I had to move my office hours, so it's all good. I had some edits to make before go time. Are you ready?
yeah. Yeah. My
Of
bright
course you
space
are.
is set up. I've been re-recording some lecture videos. Those are all set up. And I just went in and did my printing today. So
So my Brightspace is good to go. Like that's all set. My online classes have been running
yeah,
for the week, but in-person classes, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'll be in my office like beforehand, and I'm like, "What if we do this?" And I like that chaos, a little chaos, a little chaos.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I can appreciate. I can see you appreciating that.
Yes,
I, I don't know if I appreciate. I would appreciate that.
you would not. You would not.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna actually go in today, but I needed to pick up my welcome brigade shirt for
Yeah.
doing our welcome event for our students. But
So it's
for those
funny
of you,
you
oh,
said
go ahead.
that. No, because I thought there was a chance you would be recording today from your new office at work.
I don't have my microphone in there, so I didn't.
Okay.
I don't want to mess with our audio like unprompted.
Fair.
But I mean, we had a meeting in there, and it did it pick stuff up okay?
Yeah, everything was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll try someday.
Well,
I'm
so
not gonna push it.
tell everyone why you have a new office.
Oh, I think we've talked about the fact that I'm gonna be department chair.
I think so. But what if someone hasn't listened to our full suite of
Then what are you doing?
What are
Go
you
back and
even
listen to it.
doing? Stop now and go back. That's awesome. I don't know if I told you this. So I just got back from Hawaii, which
I know.
yeah,
Yes.
no. Did I tell you about the fact that I threw up in the ocean?
No. This is what you want
Yes.
recorded forever? Okay.
Yes. Okay. So
Oh no.
I'm sorry.
Everybody, we're gonna timestamp where you can jump to, and we'll just edit that in right here.
Skip intro. So Jessica and I were in Hawaii and I love snorkeling. And so we went snorkeling on Kauai, which is the garden island. It's so beautiful. So we get in this very small little boat with this like lunatic boat captain, which is the way to do it, right? And we're just like the ocean, it's the Pacific. So there's huge swells and we're just like bouncing along the top. And I was fine for a while. And then we got out and we snorkeled and we were snorkeling over these collapsed lava tubes. It was insane. There were like sea turtles that would come out of the lava tubes and come up and kind of surf the waves, and then like dip back down. It was amazing, right? But then at some point, I was like, I'm not sure I feel great. It's really choppy. So when we get back in the boat, and we ride another not long, like 5-10 minutes, more bouncing, and I'm like, I really don't think I feel good. And the captain says, so if you don't feel good, he said this in general, not knowing that he was speaking directly to me. If you don't feel good, you should get back in the water and it'll kind of even your stomach out. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. That's a good idea. So I get back in the water and we're all supposed to be snorkeling in a line because there's like a reef and you don't want to brush up against the reef
Oh
because then you bleed.
no.
Right. So I'm like, why are these people so close to me? I'm going to get kicked in the face with a fin. Like, this is not ideal. So then I'm like, I don't think this is helping, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna just hang back. I'll swim a little slower, give myself some more space. It's weird to be claustrophobic in the ocean, right? So like, then I swim up to the surface, and you know how like before you get sick, you get like a little sweaty, like.
Yes,
So I felt a little sweaty, but was in the
in the
ocean.
ocean. So how are you?
No, yeah. So
Yeah,
I threw up.
this is insane.
It's I'm like, just put yourself, you're throwing up, but you're in the ocean, like, so you're throwing up into the thing that you're
I hope
swimming
nobody
in.
sees.
Right. That's how I felt. I was like ashamed. I was like, I don't want anyone. Right. So I make sure that I'm like directed down
Oh
current.
my
Right.
god.
Horrible. So then I was like, all right, I think I'm fine. But you know how you're never really fine after you first
Yeah.
throw up. And so
No, because it's like I
right.
don't. You know what? I don't want to add to this conversation. I was gonna like chime in, but like
No, your
I don't need to
additions
make it worse
are welcome.
for
So
people.
I throw up like 3 or 4 more times until Jessica turns back and looks at me, and something on my face told her that things were wrong. And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I turn into like a 4-year-old in their mom's bedroom at 3 a.m. And I look at her and I'm like, I threw up. And she's like, get back on the boat. But the boat captain wouldn't let me back on the boat because I was throwing up. So I had to bob holding onto a buoy for like another 15 minutes until he trusted that I could get in the water or get in the boat again.
I'm sorry to everybody listening.
That's a good story.
Yeah, it's a good story. Yeah, it's a good story.
It's the
I'll give you that.
prelude to many good stories I think we're going to tell today.
Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of throwing up, we're going to be talking about test anxiety today.
Welcome to Coffee Break Classroom, brewed for higher ed, where teaching meets good vibes. We're just two friends chopping it up. Here you can expect a blend of ridiculous classroom stories, a little educational research, and some practical teaching techniques. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's talk teaching without the grading. Welcome everyone to Coffee Break Classroom.
We're brewed for higher ed.
And strong stomachs. So, as Ben suggested, today we're going to be talking about test anxiety. We're talking about a little research about test anxiety, how you can help students prepare for test anxiety, maybe some techniques you've used for test anxiety as well, personally.
Yeah, do you do anything to kind of like help students with test anxiety?
I do a lot of things. Do you?
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you would just be like, not really, and then I'd be like, well, that's the end of our episode. I thought that'd be funny.
Come back for more vomiting in the ocean stories.
Oh God. I do a little bit in kind of my intro like physics class because that's one of the first classes that students take with me that they have tests in. And now that I'm not teaching that anymore because department chair takes up a good chunk of my time, I'm probably going to be recording some of what I call study bites, and I do those with my students. I've alluded to those before in other videos, but I actually have one about dealing with test anxiety that we do the week before the first test. So we chat about that there, but I try and do as much as I can to make them feel like they know what to expect, and I think that really is something that does a lot.
So what do you do? Tell us about your mini bite, your test anxiety study bite.
Yeah, sure. So I went through and made a bunch of different study bites on different topics, and those kind of involve doing a little bit of research, what's out there on the internet, compiling stuff, and then kind of tailoring it to what I do in the classroom. And I kind of gave students, let's see how many I have here, 10 different things that are just kind of like things to hold on to, things to kind of do to help prepare. In fact, one of the things that I saw the most on any sort of website that I looked at, like the number one tip for dealing with test anxiety, do you have a guess at maybe what it is?
Be prepared.
Be prepared, 100%. Like you got it in one, like because you probably were doing a little bit of like prep. But
Well, because I've been teaching for 20 years too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
and I'm just like, Be prepared is maybe the single worst and possibly insulting tip like that I've seen for students because like most of the ones who have anxiety are doing everything that they can to prepare already anyways. So like I actually shifted the gears on that one because I list that right at the top. And instead of be prepared, it's make a plan, right? So
Okay.
I'm not telling students that like, oh, if you have test anxiety, you're not prepared enough, right? It's
Right.
like let's have a plan. So we go in with an idea of like what it is that we're looking at. But like I'm not even taking a test, and be prepared insults me like on behalf of the students. Maybe
Well,
that's too much.
so, but you're always going to have anxiety if you feel unprepared, though, right? Like, so you
Sure.
do have to prepare for adequately, and that is different for different people in different
Yeah.
subjects, in different settings. Yes, a thousand
Maybe
percent.
I'm just in the overachiever category
So
where it's yeah.
you, okay, so let's just look at the two of us, our conversation so far this morning, right? Like, I'm willing to, I know you, so I know that you have every single class sketched out for the
Hmm.
semester. I do not. Like, let's just say, like, I was like, I wonder if I have enough photocopies for lab next week. And I don't think the answer is yes. So it's fine. I'll get everything done. Like, everything is always fine. So, like,
Yeah,
but I sometimes find a little anxiety motivating. I'm not going to lie. Like,
that's fair.
but a small amount. Too much is not functional, but like just
Hmm.
enough I find useful.
Yeah, I
Motivating.
guess part of it too is I think like the students who are looking for help with test anxiety are already doing the work to try to prepare themselves.
A
So
lot of
just like I don't know.
times. And other times
Yeah,
there's just shit going on and they're like, "Oh my god, I did not have enough time this week to prepare for this." And like so there's part of
yeah.
that too.
I think so. I just think make a so anybody out there that's making like websites to help students deal with test anxiety, I think make a plan is like less insulting. Like be prepared. I think it's more helpful than be
Uh-huh.
prepared because I think make a plan gives you like a direction. Be prepared doesn't tell you what to do, right? But
True.
telling students to like make a plan like is about being intentional. Like what are the things that you need to cover? When are you going to study? What are you going to do when the test hits your desk, right? It's like goal setting that like I
Yes.
talk with my students about too, but like having a plan for what you're doing is it feels a little bit different than be prepared.
Right. So what I do along the way, I'll say. So I think tests are more stressful for students who feel like they're coming out of nowhere and they weren't even
Hmm.
aware that there was going to be a test, or maybe they were told, but like it gets lost in the shuffle. So typically 1 week before I give an exam, I hand out a review sheet. And my review sheet is, very few students recognize this, but it's just like the an outline of the notes I've given them in question form.
Yeah.
Like, so if we do a topic on like igneous textures, and then I'm like, igneous, like volcanic textures or something, right? For our audience that isn't in the weeds like I am, like, what does the appearance of a rock tell you about its cooling history? Like things like that. So they're like just, and I tell them, if you can answer some of these questions, you're going to be able to answer today, right now. You could answer
Hmm.
them without your notes, just with your brain. And I'm like, in other ones, you're going to have to go back and learn. And I'm like, and when you are done with this review sheet, you are academically prepared for this test. You know what concepts are going to be on this test. I also try, but I'm not always successful in budgeting time to do some sort of game type thing
Hmm.
before a test, whether that's like Jeopardy or trivia night type thing, or and if I don't have time for them, I put them on our learning management system so they can do that on their own. And the review sheet, I give them to a hard copy a week before the test, but a lot of times it'll be available well before that on the learning management system so they can,
Right.
so because some students like to know from the jump what to focus on.
100%. I like that kind of review sheet structure that you have because it's about scaffolding the executive functioning
Mm-hmm.
that they need to like prep, right? Having that
Yes.
conversation. Hey, we like have a test coming up in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Like, what do you need to do to be prepared by the time that that shows up, right? Like, what are the things
Yes.
that you need to do? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have my like my like intro slide that I have up when students walk in, that's always got like the test date. Like I usually will
Okay.
have that up there like a week to week and a half ahead of time
Mm-hmm.
with like the content being covered. I also give them like the checklists of like here's the things that you want. It's not quite like in question form, which I do like that, and maybe I might try something like that. But I give them that checklist of like my learning targets.
Yeah. Which you're really good about about distributing your learning targets. I don't think everyone is. I know textbooks often have them, but I know as a student when I was reading and I saw a list of things I would know by the end of the chapter. To me, that was like, oh look, here's half a page I don't have to read, and then I would
Me
just
too.
skip that.
I'm a faculty member now, and I still do
I
that.
do that too. So when I give students a review sheet, I also then have them pull out their syllabus and we will look through what I told them a test was going to look like, and we'll
Hmm.
review for those of them that haven't had me before, haven't been to office hours before. These are when my office hours are. This is what office hours is for. I think
Hmm.
sometimes students have a lot of confusion about, oh, my daughter just walked in, sorry, about what office hours are for because they just don't know. And my kids are going back to school tomorrow, so it's moderate chaos. Everything you can see here is orderly,
Yeah,
but nothing else in my life is orderly right now.
we won't keep you that long.
No, no. This is what I prefer to be doing. I don't want to pack a car just yet. So anyway, yeah, sorry. So office hours, like remind I think a lot of times I think I as a student thought you only went to office hours if you had a question, but sometimes students don't even know what questions to ask.
Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Well, that's what is nice about your review sheet because like it does let them know, right? Hey, do
yes.
I understand this or not?
Yes. And these are where the holes are in my notes and whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
Go
give
ahead.
students a couple things to do like when they get the actual test.
Mhm. Mm.
Like I tell them to like look at the whole test. Like this is common knowledge that I feel like instructors are telling students all the time, but sometimes it's nice to just like remind them,
Yep.
even when you're handing stuff out, right? Like the day of the test, telling them to just like look at the whole test first and just kind of get something on the page, which is I think like a piece of advice. That second piece
I
is
like
not
that.
something that we really share, right? Because there's nothing more intimidating than a blank page. Like,
Yep.
as somebody who does writing or even like looking at trying to create a new lab, right? There's nothing worse than like having a blank document in front of me.
It's so
So just
true.
having something on there that's relevant, like that I can jump back at later, or just like, oh, this looks like this type of problem. I'm just going to copy my equations here. That becomes immediately less intimidating just because I have some information at the top that I can work with.
Yeah, that is like the idea to me of like stackable wins. Like
Mm,
like it's you build momentum by start what like we have a lot of
hmm.
diagrams on our tests. So if there's a diagram that we did in class and it shows up on the test and you feel like you know how to do that, let's start there. And like you start, regardless of how stressed you are, if you skip to the back and see some short answer questions that you're like, I don't even know where to start here. Like, let's start with what I do know. I do know this diagram. Like, I got this when we did it in class. Let's look at that again.
Yes.
Building confidence along the way.
Yeah, that's a big part of that too. I also tell students to have like a little mantra or like a checklist of things to remember. So that way, like, because the idea of repetition, right, which we talked about in like the second year faculty series, like that can really help, especially when like they feel stuck or something is wrong. So just like having something to kind of go through in their head when they're done with a problem, like check your signs, check your setup, check your arrows if we're doing like vectors or something like that, right? So
Yes,
they got like three little things that they can just kind of repeat to themselves and then they'll go look at it.
totally. Have you ever had a student do poorly on a test? Like, I've had this, so this is like a fake question. Like, where you had a student do poorly on their first exam and then it becomes like this self-fulfilling prophecy for like their second exam. Like they're just like, or you have students who are like, I'm just not a good test taker. I'm just not a good test
Yeah.
taker, right? That's like that like growth mindset sort of thing that you have to
Hmm.
like work with. So do you have any stories or strategies for things like that?
I like not as much as I used to, and I think that's because I do retakes for all of my tests now
Mm,
at this
mm-hmm.
point, right? So like they're seeing that growth like immediately and they know they get a second chance. So it's really kind of ingraining to them. And like this is another thing that I tell students too that's on my study bite is like your grade is not a reflection of who you are, just where you are now.
So it's funny you say that. I also have a test day disclaimer. When I tell students before I hand it out, I'm like, everyone look at me. This is not a measure of who you are as a person or your value as a human being. This is a measurement of how much of this material you know today under the circumstances that surround your life.
I love the idea of just having that disclaimer printed on the top of a test.
Right?
Like they just get it and there's a disclaimer at the top, like
Yes.
wild.
You are still a good person if you don't get 100 on this test.
And I don't think any less of you, right? Like I think
No.
that's a big thing too. It's like telling my students like, hey, remember, I want you to succeed. Like I'm not gonna think you're a bad student. Like
Yes.
we can figure it out.
Yes, totally. Um, so when I've had a student who didn't do well on a test and then we have a second test coming up, a lot of times kind of going into like the subsequent test, I will find an opportunity when they either ask a question in class or answer a question in class that I feel like really tells me, like I take that moment when they to be like, "Hey, I just want you to know the way you're thinking right now is like on point. Like you get
Mm.
this. You get this and you like you're good at this." I think that sometimes that surprises the shit out of students when you're like, "Hey, you're really growing here, like you got this." And just things like that, because I think so much of test taking is like mindset, like going in feeling good. I don't know.
Do you have no, I totally agree with you. And I think like I talked a little bit here about kind of a keeping a positive attitude, like which is something that can be really hard going in a test environment, but like nothing's gonna derail somebody in a test more than like a spiral of self-doubt.
Yes.
Like, right?
Yes,
It's gonna like I like just to mix metaphors, right? It's gonna blow up the tracks before like the train hits the station.
it
Like you're
does
not like
though.
yeah, it does. And that actually is like something that I had learned about back, I think in grad school, I was attending some sort of talk or something like that, but they talked about how like neurons in your brain work like 2 feet of fresh snow, right? And like having thoughts are like taking a sled down that hill. So
Okay.
like you have so many options at the beginning of like which way you can go because it's fresh snow.
Oh, I
But
like
like the
that.
more times you go down that same track, right? That the like slicker the snow gets packed down, it's harder to sled anywhere else. Negative thoughts will work like that because you are kind of going from point A to point B, and like the more that you have kind of that negative thought about yourself, the easier it is to kind of crop up. And it's like as soon as you get a little bit on that track, like it's going to take you there. So
Yeah.
really thinking about how can you get off of that path.
So let's say as an instructor, you're sitting at the your teacher desk and you're
Yeah,
watching someone and you can tell that they're having like this spirally moment.
this has happened, and I actually wrote down some like test stories because I
Good.
was thinking we could share some of those things too. But
Yes.
I literally have like watched a student kind of almost full on panic attack in the middle of a test. And like this is a student who's like normally getting 90s and stuff. So I'm
Okay.
just like it's fine. It's gonna be okay. And like I kind of I could see him just kind of like starting to shake. It's just like getting like
Yeah.
tears. And I wrote a note, like I wrote down on a piece of paper and I was like, get up, go take a walk, get some fresh air, like come back.
Yeah.
Like you just need to be out of this space for a second and you'll feel better. And I put that all on a piece of paper and then I just did a lap around the classroom and just dropped it off like inconspicuously. And he did get up and like go, and I think like it helped a little bit for him to kind of take space from that test. But yeah, I've watched that happen.
Yeah. So I have a funny story. Like I've definitely one of the things I've never done this in a test. I've told certainly my kids this, but also I've told students this before a test. So there's like it's called box breathing,
Hmm.
right? And I think that you can like reset your nervous system with like four of these box breaths, right? Where you inhale for
Yep.
4, hold for 7, and then exhale for 8. But I never remember that,
Hmm.
so I happened to look it up before this, so I would get it right. But usually I just do 4-8-8 because it's easier to remember. But like inhale for 4, hold for 8, exhale for 8, and like you do that 4 times, and it really does like just bring that nervous energy that like just down to something more manageable. And the more you do that, the easier it get. But it's like that requires self-awareness, which it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like your student had in that moment that they were having a panic attack.
No, not at
Yeah.
all. I do talk to them about the, like breathing techniques, and I also talk about progressive muscle relaxation. So like it's kind of tied in with the breathing in and out, but what you do is you kind of breathe in and like tense, and then you like breathe out and you let go.
Oh,
But
nice.
like you're supposed to kind of do that in like one muscle group at a time, like starting at your feet and kind of working your way up. And it's a way of kind of relaxing your body.
That's cool. I've
Yeah.
never taught students that. So I have like a funny story where I don't know what was happening inside the mind of a student, but this wasn't that long ago. But I had a student one day, I was watching him take the test and he looked stressed out. And I was like, something is happening there. And he was like looking around the room kind of wildly. And he came up to me and he leaned down and he said, "Are we taking a test right now?" And it was so funny. And I was supposed to be composed. And I was just like, are
Serious?
you serious? Yes. That's what is happening. And then I was like, okay, there are other people here, Amanda. You're gonna just distract everyone. So I was like, yes, we are. And he was like, oh. But like the thing is, he hadn't missed like a bunch of classes. He had
Right.
been there for like the review
Right.
stuff. Like
Hmm.
he had the review sheet. It wasn't like he showed up for the first time in a month and it was test day. Literally, I was like, you know what? This has nothing to do with me. This has
Right.
nothing to do with me.
I've had students like that show up and like, because I have some of them that like to come in 5 minutes late, and then they're just like, "Oh, I didn't know we had a test today." I was like, "What do you mean?"
Right.
Like,
That's the thing, when as the instructor you're so intentional about like building this experience, right? And like preparing them, and then they're just like, "What's happening?" And you're like, "How
hmm.
could you not know?" And then you're reminded that not everything in the world is about your class.
Yes, no, I know. I had a student once that like showed up and like saw the test, and he goes, "Oh, can I go study for like 15 minutes and come back?" And I'm just like, "What?"
What did you say?
I mean, I actually told him no. I was like, no, like you don't, like we have retakes. Like, just do it again. Like, I'm not gonna let you go study for 15 minutes and then like stay longer. Like, he wanted to like keep working past everybody else.
Yeah, that's not
Like,
cool.
and I was just like, no, we're gonna have the same amount of time that everybody else has. Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna do it here. Like, you had your time. Like at this point, like you had your time. I don't know.
No, that's
I
fair.
don't. I think if it was a different if it was a different student, maybe I might like have been like, well, we can like work something out or reschedule. But this was a student who liked to try and push the boundaries every once in a while.
Gotcha.
I was just like,
Gotcha.
no.
So one of the things that I think students can find encouraging, or at least that I found encouraging as a student, was having a good study buddy and
Mm,
kind of building that in throughout the class. Because I feel like if you start by connecting students, whether it's over a lab material or some sort of active learning, like they at least
mm,
have someone to start with. And then if you can kind of build in review type activities that students will do together, I think that's useful. But that can be tricky because study buddies are like finding tennis partners. Like you have to find someone at like your similar skill level. It is not
okay.
useful, right, for like a student who is like a physics phenom to be paired with a student who is struggling to like it might help. It's less useful, I think,
Yeah.
overall. So you have to find someone that you can play tennis with.
There's ways it can be helpful, but it really just does depend on the dynamic of the individual students, I
A
think. Yeah.
1000%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because it's like a really obviously So I found that super useful as a student because it's not surprising that like one of the strongest ways to learn something is to have to teach it to someone else.
Right.
So, but that can be demotivating to the student who
Yes.
doesn't know as much.
Like, or the one that does know more.
Yeah.
like like that's not how they, if that's not going to be a useful way for them to spend their time, right, then
Yep.
that's not, it's going to be demotivating for them as well.
Yeah. And for the student who's struggling so much, like sometimes they see like classmates who get it so much more and they're like, wow, I
Hmm.
didn't realize how little I got it either. So it's challenging. So you're right. But the personal dynamics makes a big difference too. But hopefully, like if you build all of these structures into your class, like which we've been talking a lot about, like collaborative learning and things like that, right? So
Right.
if you build that into the nature of the class, then like having, and we're both lucky in that we're in disciplines that have like spaces that students can study and work
Hmm.
together collaboratively when they're not in class. Not every, I mean, there's study lounges in all colleges, but having dedicated space, I think, for your discipline is a huge advantage. It allows for community and gelling between students in a major, more so than just a random space in a library. But we've been lucky in that regard for sure.
Yeah. One of the things, like to kind of switch gears
Yeah.
here a little bit, like one of the other things that I try and do to help deal with test anxiety is just like, what are the better ways to kind of go about studying,
Yeah.
right? To kind of have that preparation ahead of time. I try and focus as much as possible on like study the process, not the problem. Like is the thing that I tell students.
What do you mean by that?
What like when I think one of the biggest challenges for students studying, especially like in STEM, is like stepping outside of the individual problems. Like you give them a practice test and they're gonna like just do what's on the practice test. They're just gonna keep repeating those same problems, but not learn like the larger structure of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because I try to convey to them like physics is not about the problems, it's about the problem solving, right? So
Right.
like each equation is going to use, or sorry, each problem is going to use equations in a different way or have different like free body diagrams where you have to look at forces in a different way. And you need to focus on the process and the setup techniques and not necessarily, like it's not going to be the
Totally.
exact same problem.
Right. Which I think is a big criticism of higher ed, right? Is that we don't necessarily focus enough on problem solving. We focus more on information that may or may not ever be useful to them in their quote unquote real lives.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there are other disciplines where that is a more conducive way of studying too, of just being like, oh, I just have to remember these dates
Yes,
of like,
for sure.
right? And it's not like it's a whole different world here to kind of do a math problem or a physics problem.
So that actually is something that I wrote down that I thought would be interesting to talk about. So you teach lecture and lab. Do you have lab practicals in your courses?
No, and I've thought about it because I am not really sure what the goal of like our labs are. Like,
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
yeah, like what do we want students to get out of lab? Is like we had some learning goals associated with lab, which were about designing experiments, and like we don't do any designing experiments. Students show up and like work through a lab manual and answer some questions, and I'm like, there used to be beforehand where there would be like 3 weeks where students would like kind of design their own experiment. I don't know what happened to that. That was before like I got here,
Okay.
but I've thought about that in a sense of lab is also the easiest way for some students to just like not do anything and just copy down what all their partners are doing, and
Yes.
how do we even know that they're actually getting something out of what they're doing here?
Yes. So I wrote down testing, that sometimes we test for information. There's different types of exams, right?
Hmm.
So you can test for information or you can test for skills. And
Hmm.
sometimes a good test should do both.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we necessarily always do that. Like, I know someone who took an art history class, for example, and could sit down and tell you by looking at pictures, like the artist, the year, and
I had to do that
right.
in undergrad.
But
Yeah.
like in terms of like putting in context, right? Like that was
Hmm.
this period and it reflected these beliefs in society and things like the the actual context, like sometimes you get so lost in the minutia that you forget why you're doing that. So to your
Hmm.
point, like, is one of, if one of your goals for lab is for students to like play with the design method, like, I don't know that a test necessarily gets at the design method unless
Right.
unless it's intentionally set up for that.
Hmm. And I think those types of tests can be the ones that create the most anxiety because if you like I remember being in grad school and like having these graduate required examination like things that we had to do in order to like continue with our PhD program. We had to like
Yep.
take a test of like problems that were just generated by faculty. And I like that was really anxiety inducing because there are faculty and even in the classes I was taking who would just have questions to quote unquote see how we think. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, what does that even mean? Like, how do you prepare for something like that, right? So I try and keep my tests focused on like these are the skills, like this is the knowledge that I want you to be able to demonstrate, and like we're gonna look at how you think like in other ways. Like that's not what a test is for, and as far as I'm concerned.
So then that I feel like is where lab kind of comes in. So you
Hmm.
understand the skill set from the quote unquote lecture portion, and then you can use lab to show, to demonstrate thinking
Yeah.
in like the design. Because yeah, I I think that one of the things, so I went to a workshop last month in Colorado, and I had the opportunity to work with faculty from 2-year schools, 4-year schools, R1 schools, like the whole gamut. And we are lucky in our class sizes. And so like I think my
Mm-hmm.
class size is max out at like 33 or something when I, well, either, yeah, max out at like 33. I mean, I met some folks who have class sizes of like 400, and like I don't, and lecture classes of 400 can be divided up into like 8 sections of lab, right, of
Mm-hmm.
25, but still like we, I'm fortunate in my small classes that I can do a lot of like hands-on learning even in quote unquote lecture time because it's small enough. I have enough materials, I have enough time to get to interact with everyone. Even if you have a TA, you and a TA are not going to make it to all 400 people in a 50-minute period. Like that's just not
Nope.
reasonable.
Most of the time that most schools that have that kind of setup, they'll also have like a recitation hour where there is a smaller class. So it's like a lab, but like for the hands-on lecture stuff.
Yeah.
I've done that. Like as I've been that TA.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I've never really had that experience, but I don't know. I was thinking about how there are some students who will do so well on like the lab portion of like the hands-on learning, and then
Hmm.
don't do as well when you're, so we have a really like jargony based discipline, like geology, super jargony based, and some students do less well at that. And I was thinking about how that translates, and I'm going to stop pontificating, but like into the real world, quote unquote, occupations, right? Like you have let's say you have like a carpenter who comes to your house, right? And you want your carpenter to have those really important hands-on skills to build the best dining room table, right? But you also want them to have enough of like the lingo that they're not like, I'm gonna use the saw thingy and and you know, scrape the wood, and you're like, oh, I don't know about this.
Me helping my dad. Just kidding.
So there has to be like a happy balance. Like there's something, we live in an age of AI where a lot of the technical information is knowable, and so memorization is not super important, but enough of a working vernacular is important to inspire confidence, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know.
Have you, so I mean, I remember being in those really large kind of lecture classrooms too. And one of the games that I used to play as a grad student was like, where's the next question coming from? Like
Ooh.
I would just sit there and try and guess. Because one of the things that I try to do during tests to just kind of help students is like I will walk around because like sometimes they'll feel more comfortable just like having somebody near them. I don't
Yes.
know what it is.
No,
Yeah.
it's true.
But but they're also more likely to ask a question or if they like need help understanding something if there's like somebody right there rather than
Yeah.
like coming getting up and coming up to the front of the room to just be like help.
Yeah, I think they feel much less like they're bothering you if you're milling
Yeah.
around the room. Like you're already there. Like I'm not getting you up.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
What do you like have students in the middle of a test that like come up to you with like a blank page and they're like, "Can you help me with this?"
Yes.
Like,
Yes. And I always feel like it's always a slippery slope, like how much you can feed
hmm
to a student to kind of like get their brain going without just like giving away too much in a way that's now unfair to other students.
hmm
So I try to break things down and I'll be like, look at this word, tell me what this means. And so, like, sometimes it'll be like the structure of a question that they're struggling with. Sometimes they don't know where to get started with a diagram.
Right.
And so I'm not one of the, I know there are instructors, I hope they don't still exist, who like won't let students like write on a test. Like I want students to, yeah, no, people used to do that. I think they would
Oh, with
reuse
like the bubble sheets, right?
not
Like,
even the
'cause-
bubble sheets. Like you'd have a
oh,
question sheets and maybe you'd have an answer sheet and people wouldn't want you to write on the test, which I don't
oh,
understand.
interesting.
Yeah, no, that was
Okay.
definitely a thing. I don't know if people reuse tests. I don't know what their story is, but either way. Yeah.
I think if it's a wording question, it's real easy to help. I think
Yes.
when it's like I don't know what to do here, and I'm just like I don't know what to say to you. Like I think I will usually be along the lines of like we talked about this on this day.
Yes.
Like think about that. Goodbye.
Right.
Like,
Or like we'll be like, remember you had to use like we don't you really use a ton of formulas, but like remember we used this tool to do this sort of thing, or like how are you
mhm.
gonna get this part of the answer? How can you measure a length? Like there are things where you can kind of nudge them, but it's like a slippery slope.
I know. Sometimes it is just rephrasing the question.
Yes.
Like, and I think that is sometimes enough.
And other
Because
times like I can't be super helpful because it's like
and I am also I tell them like I this is my time to be less helpful than I usually am. Like
yeah.
I can't like give you everything here.
So what do you do after a test?
Uh grade it. I don't know what you
No, I
mean.
mean like
No.
so let's say a test goes very differently than you anticipate it going.
Oh, sure. I will usually do my tests at the end of the week, so I have the weekend to grade them. But even if it's not on the weekend, I try to have stuff graded and back to them before the next class period because
Uh-huh.
like sometimes
Cuz you're you.
I'm me. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Thanks. Um, and like because I do everything like in an Excel file where I will input their grades, like I actually
Yeah.
have like spreads of data. I have like bar graphs. So I kind of give them a picture of like how it went. We'll have a conversation about it. Because sometimes I do try new things and like it goes
Yeah.
longer than like the test took longer than I wanted it to have taken.
Sure.
And like we have some flexibility, but I'm just like, okay, so like clearly something was wrong somewhere. Like
Yep.
either I was asking too much or we were not like at the level that we needed to be. So like what do we feel like happened with that? And I will kind of like solicit some feedback from students. 9 times out of 10, they're like, it was my fault. Like it was our fault. Like and I'm
Yep.
like, okay, cool. And like I appreciate that I'm in a space where like they recognize that I'm already going like extra miles for them.
Yeah.
And so because often a lot of the downside of having a retake is that sometimes students will like not put in as much work for
Sure.
the first one. So then if you're not really prepared because you didn't really do anything, like you are going to take longer because you don't have that muscle memory ready to go with certain questions. But I am appreciative that they at least acknowledge that. I'm happy to be the person that's wrong.
Yep.
Like one of the first times that I actually the very first time that I tried my new testing model after all of the like equitable grading practice stuff,
Yep.
I gave them like two quizzes for the first quiz day, and then they were going to be able to do the retakes later. So
Yep.
like it would be 1 and 2, and then for 3, and they could retake either of the other ones.
Right.
And that was my initial structure. But the averages on both of those quizzes were like 50s. And I'm just like, this is my fault. Like anytime that there's an average that is like a 50, like that's not entirely on the students. Like there's definitely something going on with like either the test design or like the content wasn't delivered. That's my belief, right? That if we have like a test average that's like less than a 50, like it can't just be the students there at that point. And so like I showed up with that in the data and I was talking with them and I'm just like, so like I screwed up and they were like, no, no, you didn't. It's our fault. Like we didn't study enough because we knew there'd be retakes and we had all this other stuff going on. And I'm just like, okay, all right, fine.
So I would have,
Yeah.
speaking of retakes, I would imagine that retakes helps the first test decrease, like that decrease test
Yeah.
anxiety for the first test. What happens? Do you see any difference in like the second test
In terms of like
or quiz?
anxiety,
Yes.
not really. I think by the time that they come into the second one, they feel prepared because they've done the first one. They know what the structure is going to look like. They
Yep.
have an idea of what to expect. Like they now know me as like somebody who writes tests. And I think that helps them kind of come in a good space.
So one thing I do for my face-to-face classes that cracks them up like every time, the class before I'll answer questions on the test and they'll ask like, hey, what sort of diagrams or how many, they always want to know how many short answer there are or whatever. And I
I
typically,
always get I always get what's the answer to the first question?
so stupid. So,
I know.
but I actually, this is where I'm prepared. I always have like the test is already photocopied. Like it's usually in the next room. And so I will just go get the test. And they're like, "Is that the test?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they're like, "You're just looking at the test." And I'm like, "Yes." It's not a secret. Like I told you there's going to be a diagram about this and that
Hmm.
you are going to interpret this diagram like it's not there's no mystery, right? So I don't feel weird telling like holding the test
Right.
up. What do you want to know
Well,
about it?
because you spend a whole week looking at topographic maps and
Right.
you're like, there's going to be a topographic map. Like,
Yes.
I have to test your ability to like
Read a
interpret a topographic map.
right. Like I tell them in there you are going to have to draw like lines to like contour lines for example. They do that
Yeah.
on one of the tests and they're like,
Hmm.
what is that? I'm like, they're spot elevations because you're going to have to draw the lines, which I told you right here in your review sheet. They're connected. So, yeah. So sometimes I will do like exam wrappers or like exam reflections after a test.
Hmm.
And sometimes so I do that and then I hold on to them until like the next test. So I will ask them, hey, how did you
This is one of your tricks.
it
This is,
is.
this is, I feel a trick
That's
coming.
true. So I hand out a sheet. How did you prepare for this test? What do you think went really well here? What did not go well? What is something you can do next time that'll help you prepare for things that didn't go well? Like whatever, just stuff like that. And then I collect them and I keep them. I read them over because it's good for me to know. Because sometimes students will disclose that like I had 3 tests this week and so I couldn't
Yeah.
adequately, yeah, whatever. And then when I give them the review sheet, like a week before exam 2, I will hand them back their exam wrappers, and I'll be like, "Remember how that felt, and this is what the plan you made to be successful on exam 2, and here it is. Do your plan." Like
Yeah.
so. I found, but what I haven't done, but I think might be better, would be instead of doing an exam, I'll exam wrapper, I should do like an exam preview. Like, hey, you have 1 week until the test,
Yeah.
right? Let's proactively prepare. When are you going to study? What are you going to do? What things do you need? Do you need to get copies of like PowerPoint slides because you want to look at figures again? Are you going to plan to work with someone? Let's schedule that now. Like to be proactive rather than now we've taken a test and it hasn't gone well. So how can we react to that?
It's all about scaffolding that executive functioning.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. And I think having them write it down is a good idea because it forces them to commit to something.
Yeah.
Like because it's there and
Yeah.
they have to look at it later and be judged by their own choices.
Right. I
Yeah,
thought this would be a useful tool. I should probably do it.
I like it.
I like it, but I don't always remember to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's because you just fly by the seat of your pants.
It's an enjoyable way to live. Until you're throwing up in the Pacific Ocean. That's less enjoyable. But
Yeah.
most other times, not terrible.
Do you have any other crazy test stories?
Um, like meltdowns during a test.
Sure.
Oh,
Like I had a student
go ahead.
once that like kept working and he was one of the last people to leave and he just got up and like threw away his test
Oh
like
my
on the way out.
god.
Like I was sitting there and I was just waiting for him to finish because I was giving him an extra 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had the time and he just kind of got up and I'm like working at the front desk and
Mm-hmm.
like I like look up and he's like walking out the door and he never came up to give me the test and I'm just like where is it? And I was in the trash. I actually pulled it out of the trash and he had an 80. Like
Stop! An
yeah, he
80?
thought he yeah, I know. I sent him an email and I was like, "Hey, like your test didn't like your test missed you missed the desk on your way out like to turn your test in. And I just wanted to let you know how it went." Like it's
That's insane.
he just apologized like he didn't think it went well and like he was really really stressed out about it.
So my very first semester teaching, I was 24, 23, very young. And I was explaining their first mineral test. And the first mineral test is a lot, and it's usually like the third week of school. And they have to know the properties of minerals, the process of identifying the properties and the names, and there's about 30 of them. So it's not, and they're not normal words for the most part. So it's a lot. And so I was, and during class they use like a chart to identify minerals, and I was explaining that they were going to do all of this and they were going to do it without a chart. And a student yelled at me, like stood up and yelled at me, and I was like flustered. I would still be flustered today if that happened, but like
Yeah.
I typically build in like moments where now I'm preparing students like along the way, like, hey, you're doing really well now, next week when you do this without it, like, so I'm better at
Hmm.
prepping them than I was there. And I would still be flustered, but I could manage it today. If no one yells at me, because what the hell. I didn't have this, but Jessica had a student once not do well on a test and got it back and made direct eye contact with her and ripped it into tiny little pieces, first long ways and then into short little chunks. And everyone's watching her, and gets up and just throws the pieces in the trash can and walks out dramatically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I don't think she reacted because I don't really know what the proper reaction would be. But dramatic, dramatic.
I had a student once. This is actually probably the craziest story, and I still picked on him for like a year or so after this. But he came up in the middle of a physics test and asked for some help, and it was just a very simple like wording
Yep.
question. That's all it was, and he like thanked me for it, and then like told me later that he like because he had been in the bathroom a little bit beforehand and
Yep.
then came up and asked me a question. He had gone to the bathroom to look up stuff on his phone
Oh, wow.
but then told me it wasn't cheating because he couldn't find the answer that he was looking for.
That's incredible. Nice
It
job,
was
buddy.
very funny. It didn't have any sort of impact on his grade at all. So
Yeah.
I was like, you're still within the like you're within the boundary of like where you usually are. Like it's whatever. But like I was just like, what do you mean? Like I would have helped you with that. You could have just come talk to me.
You're an
Yeah,
idiot. I know.
it's not cheating. I didn't find the answer. I was like, you were in the
You're just
bathroom on
not
your phone.
you're just not
Like,
that good at cheating. That's all it
yeah.
really is. That's what we've learned. Don't do it. It's like when my
Good
children
grief.
lie to me. They're not good at it. And I'm like my daughter last night, I wouldn't have gotten mad at this at all, and this is a good way to end this. She was like, "This is my last night here. I think I'm just going to take the car. I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to go out
Mm.
thrifting." And I'm like, "Do you want your sister to go with you?" And she's like, "No. Just really want to be on my own." I'm like, "Okay." So, it's like 9:30 at night. This child isn't home, and I was like, "What?" And so child has her location on. So I screenshot it. She's in like the middle of the suburbs, and I'm like, I'm not familiar with this library. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, you're not good at lying. I wouldn't suggest it. Like, what are you?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think test anxiety can do a lot to students, and some of them choose to go down the route of like trying to lie and like figure stuff out. And I do my best to try and create an environment where like they don't feel the need to do that,
A
right? Like
hundred percent.
that's what it
A
is.
hundred
Yeah.
percent. That's actually what I said to her when she came home, and I was like, I work hard to create an environment where you're not afraid to tell me things you think I'm not gonna like. So
Yeah. And of all people for you, like to you too, like that feels weird. Like me knowing you, I'm just like,
I was like,
yeah.
no part of this would I have had a problem with. And she's like, I'm like, I know you didn't do that in high school. Let's not start doing this now. We don't need this dynamic now.
Yeah. Strange.
Yeah, but good times.
What a way to end the episode.
On that note, don't lie if you're not good at it.
Yeah, so hopefully this is useful for people considering when this comes out. We're probably going to be
Yeah,
a month or so into the semester, and you probably have your first test coming up soon, like to think about what you can do to help students feel a little bit more prepared and have some less anxiety about going into exams.
yeah. And if you would like to hear more about any of these topics or you have a specific situation you'd like to share, send us an email at coffeebreakclassroom@gmail.com. And thanks for joining us today.